This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. What's going on, you guys, man? Welcome back to another King Japes video. Now, the intro you guys were just looking at, I shot that earlier in the day thinking that I was going to have time to film. Something came up, and so we are filming now, and it is like 11:30 at night. But with that said, you guys, I wanted to make a quick little video today talking about some of the point and shoot film cameras that I own. Just to give you guys a little bit more insight on each of the cameras that I shoot with, and hopefully by the end of this video I could help somebody out there maybe, you know, find a new camera to shoot with, or maybe even just get their own first film camera, because point and shoots are a great way to start. Now, before I show you guys the cameras that I do own, I want to get this off my chest and just say that point and shoots are really hot right now. They range anywhere between, you know, $10 to $20 on the kind of like, you know, more inexpensive range, all the way up to the thousands, and there's a price point for everyone out there. I will say a lot of the cameras that I do own are more of like the underdog point and shoots, kind of point and shoot cameras that nobody really talks about. I think a lot of people nowadays, especially with the recent surge of, you know, popularity with film photography, people are going for like the hyped up film cameras. Now, the first camera that I have in my collection here is, I will say, it's one of the more sought after point and shoot cameras, and you know, it's not even really considered a point and shoot, it's actually considered a rangefinder. Okay, so judging by the looks of this red case, maybe you guys, you know, maybe the fans on this channel who have been here with me for years know what this is, but if you guys are brand new to this channel, this might be new to you. So inside of this red case holds my absolute most favorite compact rangefinder. I call it a point and shoot because it is small enough, in my opinion, to be considered one. And that one, you guys, I'm going to pull it out here in this magnetic case, is of course the ever so popular, infamous Olympus Xa. Alright, so the Olympus Xa, you guys, is a tiny little 35mm rangefinder camera. Now, what makes the Xa special, in my opinion, is the fact that it has a full rangefinder built in. This right here, this little tab on the bottom, is actually the focus throw. So from close focus all the way to infinity, focusing can be a little difficult just because the throw is so short, but over time you get used to it and you can focus very quickly as long as you practice. Now, the Xa has this very popular kind of clamshell design. It has a kind of like wind up lever here on the right side. You don't have anything that swings out. And it's also an aperture priority only camera. And so on the right side of the camera here, you have your aperture selections from f2 all the way down to f22. But what makes it even more special is the fact that you can have an attachable flash whenever you want on the side. And how it works is, here is the flash. Actually, I have two. This is the A11. I think the A11 was built for the Xa, correct me if I'm wrong. This one's a little bit smaller. And then there is the A16, which may have been for like the Xa2, 3, or the Xa2, I'm not sure. But the flash, the A16 flash still mounts onto the Xa. It's very simple. You got a little clip magnet here on the side. And all you're gonna have to do is kind of like line it up. You're gonna feel a little click inside of there. And then this little wheel is just going to lock in the flash. So now you have a flash here on the Xa. It does add a little bit of length to the camera. And in order to activate that, you need to go to your aperture priority selector here on the side and hit it all the way up. And when you hit it all the way up, folks, this little part right here, excuse me, is gonna pop up, and that lets you know that the flash is now ready to use. Yeah, okay, so there's no battery in here, but usually this will light up red when it is recharging. The Xa is incredible, you know, as a kind of small, pocketable, fully functional rangefinder camera. Now, let's say you want something a little bit more automatic, something that's going to focus for you and, you know, pick your exposure for you without having to worry. It's going to meter. The next camera I would recommend, apart from the XA, would be the brother to the Olympus Stylus Epic, folks. And that one, you guys, is the Olympus MJU1. Now, the Olympus MJU1, very similar to the Stylus Epic. This was the first of the series, and then the Stylus Epic came after. Main difference, folks, is that this camera has a 35mm 3.5 lens opposed to the 2.8 in the Stylus Epic. In the nutshell, it has a clamshell design just like the Stylus Epic here. Beautiful lens here up front. Again, that's that 35mm 3.5 lens. It also has a built-in flash. It's a little bit chunkier than the XA as well as the Stylus Epic. That's a feature that you have to keep in mind, but still, you guys, it is fairly small compared to the size of my palm. And the great thing is these cameras you can find on eBay, you can find them at thrift stores, you can find them in your grandma's attic. Look for it, try to find a good deal on it. And so if you guys can get your hands on either the Olympus XA or the Olympus Stylus, these are the two that I would recommend the most in terms of having a small pocketable setup that's going to create quality images. And these are really kind of like the only two hyped up point and shoots that I own. The rest, again, like I said in the beginning, they are all underdogs. Now, before we jump into those cameras, you guys, I want to give a huge thank you and shout out to our sponsor for this episode, the good folks over at Squarespace. Squarespace is your all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. All right, you guys, so we have only a couple months left here in 2021, and before the new year starts, right now is a great time to get started with your very own website. Again, if you are a photographer, videographer, or any type of online creator and you have work to show off, don't just post it up on your Instagram. You need your own dedicated website and portfolio. Now, Squarespace pretty much gives you all the tools you need, from award-winning templates to drag and drop interfaces to create an e-commerce shop, as well as even your own personal portfolio. And if you want to get ahead before the new year starts, right now is the time to get started with your own personal website. So head over to squarespace.com/KingJapes or enter promo code KingJapes at checkout, and you guys are going to receive 10% off of your first purchase of a domain or a website. Huge thank you to Squarespace, man, for sponsoring this episode. All right, let's get back into it, you guys. So, underdog film cameras. The first one I am going to start out with is probably my favorite out of the three. And it may surprise you guys because it's a camera that has a little zoom. All right, so I've talked about this camera a lot on the channel. This is the Pentax IQ Zoom. This particular model, but the one that I had in the past was the 735, and that one I really liked because it had a nice boxy shape to it. But Pentax made some really fun and cool point and shoot cameras back in the day. My personal favorite from theirs is the IQ Zoom lines. And it's simple because, they have these zoom lenses on them. This one has a 38 to 70mm zoom. So, you're already at kind of like a moderately wide angle 38mm. And if you want to zoom in, you can go all the way to 70mm. And what's really cool too about this camera, you guys, is that in the viewfinder, it actually will zoom with the lens. It's really hard to explain, but the frame lines, as well as kind of the perspective, it gets nice and small in frame here. So nice, that's a new word. But just to show you guys a quick little tour of the camera, it has very minimalistic kind of like design. You have all of your hits here, the Pentax, the branding. If you want to cover that up with gaff tape, you can. You get a completely blank camera slate. Nice viewfinder here on top, nice and clear, and you also get a flash here on the side. My favorite thing though is, at the top here, it does have 17 shots on the clock, but you also have flash settings. You also have the on-off switch. A lot of really cool things like self-timer. Of course, your shutter button is here, and it has like this nice kind of like rubbery texture, nice and soft. The zoom itself is actually really cool. It's in a very ergonomically good position for your thumb to just rest on. Feels very nice in the hand, man. And if you have larger hands like me, the IQ Zoom actually feels comfortable. That's an issue with cameras like the Olympus Xa. It just feels a little bit too small and boxy. Even though it's one of my favorite cameras, a camera like this has really good ergonomics. It feels very comfortable in the hand. On the back side of the cameras, you have a data back here, which is going to imprint today's date. But when I bought this camera, it already had a date on there, and it says 1994. Which is pretty cool. It kind of just shows the age of the camera. Like I said, you guys, great little camera. You can find it inexpensively either at a thrift store or online. I think it is an insanely good value for what it is. Doesn't that just look crazy? So like, okay, next camera, very similar, but this one is from Ricoh. This is just the Ricoh RZ1000 with the date back again here, and it's very similar again to kind of like the Pentax camera for all the same reasons. This one has a 38 to 105 millimeter focal range. What's really interesting about this camera though, folks, is that it has a macro function. I don't have any batteries to kind of turn it on right now, but I've shot with this camera in the past, and the macro on this is pretty damn good. For it being a point and shoot, it is insane. And as well as the viewfinder inside of there, when you zoom or zoom out, it will kind of, adjust perspective to match the focal length. Now, why I like this Ricoh in particular is the fact that it just looks very sleek. It has these nice kind of bezels that allow your fingers to dig into. Overall, it is a very boxy setup. Apart from that, you do get a nice little LCD screen here at the top. Now, one feature that the Ricoh has that the Pentax doesn't is a panoramic feature. Now, obviously, it's not a full 35 millimeter panoramic. It's just going to crop the top and bottom of the frame to give you a nice little slither of film to expose. When you open the back here, this little switch at the top will adjust that for you. As you guys can see there, it opens and closes up the exposed area. So you can shoot technically panoramics with this camera. So that is the Ricoh RZ1000. Any of these cameras, the RZ1000s or even like the Pentax IQ Zoom models, are great, affordable little, cameras that replace disposable cameras. These blow disposable cameras out the water. And so if you're looking for something that is a little bit more, long-term, it's gonna last you a little bit longer, I would recommend looking into these cameras if you're just getting into film. You're not gonna be spending an arm and a leg, and it really is kind of low risk, because if one of these breaks, it's going to break, you're just gonna have to replace it. So the last camera, depending on how you look at it, can still be considered an underdog. Okay, so just to show you guys really quick, it comes in this nice little case. The case was actually designed for the camera. It contours perfectly to the camera's, curves. Has a nice Velcro up here, and you pull it out and bam. Here it is, you guys. This is the last camera in the collection. This is the Canon SureShot Supreme. Now, the SureShot Supreme has a 38 millimeter 2.8 lens, which is surprisingly sharp, but it's often overshadowed by the Canon AF35M, which is considered the auto boy. And that one is a little bit more boxy. It has kind of like this clunky, old school loud shutter, and it's really popular. It's a very popular camera. Just going from the top here, it has almost like a banana looking shape to it. I guess it does help with the grip a little bit. What I like about this camera though, you guys, is that it is a very simple camera to operate. Once you have batteries in, you flip this little switch and this blade will shoot open, exposing the 38 millimeter 2.8 lens. And then all you do is go ahead and shoot with it. It has autofocus, it has auto exposure. The only real dial you have is for the self timer, which is gonna be up here. It's a button, it's not even a dial, excuse me. And so if you're looking for something that is very simplistic, a camera that you're gonna be able to just go, shoot with without having to really think too much about the camera settings and whatnot, this is really kind of a good option for you. You load the film in, after you put batteries in it, you flip this little switch and then you're out shooting, and it's gonna make some really beautiful photos. In order to load a battery in, you have to have a Phillips screwdriver on hand. And so if you're out on the field and you're trying to make photographs and your battery dies, you're gonna need to have a Phillips screwdriver ready to go to be able to take off. That's what's holding the strap, and that's what also has the battery cover. On top of that, the SureShot Supreme takes a very weird battery. It's the 2CR5, which looks kind of like two batteries conjoined into like a plastic fitting, and it's very hard to find. You're not gonna find them at any drugstore. I've went to Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Lucky, Walmart, Target, all of those stores, they don't carry a 2CR5 battery. You have to go to kind of like a specialty store, like a batteries and bulbs. But the only drawback is it costs $19. If you ask me, this is the main reason why I feel like people don't like this camera. All right, so that pretty much wraps up the point and shoot film cameras that I own. All right, you guys, so that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you guys, man, for sticking to the very end. Before we go, comment down below what film cameras you own in terms of the point and shoot trend. Thank you guys, man, for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next one. As always, Minolta Gang.